in Ireland and Cork in Ireland. I think one of those will be a flat and one will be a jump, but I'm not really into jump racing, so I haven't watched jumps for years. So I used to go to Cheltenham all the time. At one point I was a jumps fan, but I just fell out of love with the jumps and stuck to the flat. Went international. Obviously you've got to fill that gap when there's no jumps, so I just started. This is like 15 years ago, started on South African racing, and then I moved from South African racing. I mean, it's just natural progression when you do all the form, all the study, all the blood stock and breeding, and there's nothing else more to do. You just move to another country. I'm in America, studying their blood stock and their speed ratings for the last few years. So it's good for sort of a professor in breeding, horse ratings, speed ratings, merit ratings. I mean, I've studied them all for 35 years. I've done this every single day, so you could say it's sort of professory. But anyway, let's get on. I want to talk about. Well, let's have a look at what's in the news first. I think there's some interesting news in the. Obviously, Enable was retired yesterday. And obviously when people see retired, it doesn't mean the horse is going to go in the field, and she will be put to work as a broodmare. And so we'll see a lot of little Enables. I mean, that's just part of the Juddmonte, the machine of Juddmonte. She'll be a Juddmonte broodmare. There's a massive operation there at Juddmonte. They produce some marvellous horses. And also, there's a bit of a bad news down in Australia. Winx, her first foal has sadly died, and that's an absolute tragedy. I just nearly started crying when I heard that. So there's a bit of bad news here. In Winx's first foal has sadly passed, and that is just bringing you. I don't really want to talk about that bad news, but let's get on with what else is in the news. Our Champions Day is coming up soon. We've talked about what race meetings on. I'm not going to give any tips today. If you want my tips, you have to go to www.frg.co.uk. So either sign up to the free tips or get my tips behind a paywall. I'm afraid my tips are behind a paywall. And we had a 16-1 info winner on Saturday, first time out, debutant. I also put a 10-1, 12-1 winner. Well, I think it opened up at 16-1 actually. At SP was 10-1. I put out a 10-1 debutant last night on Twitter. I thought it had a good chance. I didn't have time to go onto the website, so I just put it out on Twitter. Sometimes I'll put some tips out on Twitter free. If I'm very busy with other things. What I wanted to talk about this morning was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I'm interested in that. Especially the horse ran the other day called Aunt Pearl. Now I was looking in her rating the last time when she won on debut. She won by 5 lengths on debut, and they only give her like a 71 buyer or something like that. No, I think it was a 72 buyer to be honest with you. And then she won the other day at Keeneland, and now she's in this race. That was a qualifier for this race. And Aunt Pearl seems to be, she did it well that day. I haven't got the buyer. I'll check the buyer later, but what we've got from California, I think California, we've got Fluffy Socks, that's Chad Brown's. I don't think there's anything, the horses in California, the Calbreds taking on the Northeast breds. I'm not sure about it this year, but I'm going to have a bit think about it. But I'll give you the runners for the this race. I think it's on the Friday, this race. Plum Alley, that's Christophe Clement's horse. and did about 70 buyer last time out, but originally the qualifying buyer was 83 on debut. So I always, when I look at these 2-year-olds, I always concentrate on their debut buyer, because I always think the trainers get them conditioned to run their best race at the buyer. I mean, I think after that, they'll either stop, they'll just tick them over with a canter every day, put them in the field, then canter them, and then bring them back to a race where obviously they've got enough race fitness that they won't be stressed during the race, but they're not conditioned, right? So they'll finish down the field, and obviously that'll get a lower rating, but that's not the horse's, potential. The trainer knows the horse's potential, and he'll just go into a race that he thinks he can win with the figure, what he's got in his head, what the horse did on debut. He'll try and get it in a race where it's competitive. He'll condition the horse, and what they do is, when I was an owner, we used to phone around other owners, seeing what they thought about their horses. We're not going to be bothering today, tomorrow, and all this, and that would give you a better idea. And I'm sure they do it in America, and that gives you a better idea of your chances, and therefore you get the market trends, because the owners are basically doing the work behind the scenes for the punters in these market algorithms. When you get these gambles, coming down, horses, being backed strongly, that's because of things like this that's going on in the background. It's not just because of somebody's reading the form and thinks the form's great and some tipster puts it out. There's all sorts of things that make a horse its price on the day, and that's part of it. And obviously Donnett O'Brien's Shale has qualified for this race. Her next race was due to go off at October the 9th at Newcastle. I don't think she did it. Then we've got the Capinelli from Wesley Ward, who did 80 buyer last time out. So that one's on my radar in the top, thinking about the top box. Then we've got Emerald, Brad Cox. Brad Cox's 2-year-olds are absolutely flying this year. He's one of the top trainers in the, the States and in the, the Northeast. My Don, Simon Callahan, Simon Callahan trains in California, and his horses have been flying in, Southern California this year. So he's one to watch in Santa Anita and Del Mar. We're now in Santa Anita season, so Del Mar's just finished. So definitely keep an eye on Simon Callahan in Santa Anita, because I think his horses are really running well. Graham Motion, Alda, did a 79 Alda. Did a 79 last time, a buyer. And Pearl, I think Pearl must have done it plus 80 buyer the other day. The buyer hasn't been printed yet, but I think, it probably has been printed, but I haven't looked it up. It's got to be a plus 80, so I'm looking at that. And Pearl was 15 to 1 for this race last week. I think the odds will be changed now for Anne Pearl. And then you've got Fluffy Socks, obviously Chad Brown, done a 63, 65 and 69 buyers. Invincible Gal, Grey Motions, 65, 56 and 71 buyers. Batia, who's disappointed me last race, did a 71 buyer last time, but I don't think Batia can win this race now. I was thinking about that horse, but the two I'm going to put up here is Anne Pearl and possibly Madone with that Simon Callahan. He's probably got a decent horse there. Shale, obviously Donnett O'Brien. Let's see if Shale comes to town. And what else was I going to say? Yes, that Plum Alley. So we'll have a look at that race in detail further along the line when I do a proper PDF. I'm doing proper PDF. I'm just waiting until everything's, all the fields are set before I complete the PDF. But what I'm doing now, I'm getting everything in my head from all these races. I'm going through all the races now, and getting everything, all the background and all the, the groundwork done for these races. Is there any news? Yes, we've got more news today. I want you to think about a couple of races tomorrow night, Wednesday, and that's at Emerald Downs. Mark your card. I'm going to mark your card with these horses on Wednesday. Write down this horse, Man's Gold and Joan Gutierrez. That's 2 horses, and they'll be running at Emerald Downs tomorrow. Now, they've got great chances in them races, so write them both down and look at the Emerald Down card Wednesday. And then on Keeneland on Wednesday, look for a horse called Aquaphobia, who runs in the Sycamore. I think that horse can win that race, so I'm going to mark your card with there with 2 races, and we'll probably get some more going later on. And obviously we've got Champions Day, Saturdays. Well, I've already mentioned Saturday we had the 16-1 debut winner backed into 9-1. Proper top class info from my contacts in the States. Obviously I looked at the form of the horse, had no form. I looked at its work tabs were average. I would never have picked it myself, but I was told this horse was going to win, and it duly won, 16-1 for paying members. And we had lots of successes on Saturday as well, and some defeats. But overall, we're getting there.